I, James, founded and work for HPI, but do not represent them or any of their opinions.
Welcome to Season 9, Episode 330 of the Furlo Bros Tech Podcast. Every week, we definitively answer one question about the future of tech. To do that, we take into account many factors, including the companies involved, the people working for them, their marketing, and of course, the technology they're developing. I'm Matthew Dean Furlo, and wearing a yard sign on his back is my brother, James Furlo.
Yes, we will talk a little bit about that later. You were actually the one who was wearing a yard sign on your back. And,
that's not true. That's true enough.
You're the one with the yard sign. No, you're the yard sign one. That was an election reference for those of you who caught it. Did the word puppet. So what are we talking about? Oh, yeah. So as some of you may know, last weekend was South by Southwest. A huge conference, and Matthew and I got together and decided to join a conference. And for those of you who are like, what, where'd you guys get the money and information and know how to go to South by Southwest? Well, to you we say that's a great question, because we didn't go there. We went somewhere else. We went to we'll call it probably one of the bigger home shows in Mid-Willamette Valley.
Okay.
Lane County. Lane County. We went to the Lane County Home Show, and we didn't just go to visit. We had a booth there. What? So we'll talk a little bit about that, hence the yard sign with Matthew. But while we were there, we were looking around, and we noticed a very noticeable absence of something, and we thought that would be worth talking about on this show. And so the question that we're going to try to answer is, what will it take for the smart home to go mainstream? Because it was not mainstream at all in Lane County. And we actually had I don't know if we were the highest tech booth there, because there was that security booth that had a lot of monitors and cameras and stuff like that.
Yeah, but no laptops.
That's true. They were just like TV displays.
Yep.
It was all like pre-canned stuff. So there's that.
Winner chicken dinners.
Yeah. So for those of you who are curious, we launched a new website. It's called majordomo.com, majordomo.com. It's a website that is all about helping homeowners be more confident homeowners. Matthew's like, I've heard this speech like a couple hundred times over the last 4 days. So the idea is it's like a credit score for your home. And so we developed this platform where you can go in and score your home, and through that it will help give you advice on what to do next for home maintenance and improvement. And so we think that just like your credit score is super important, we think the score for your home is super important. We call it a Domo score, by the way. Super cool. Check it out. But like we said, we were definitely the highest tech booth that were there. Like I said, I think there was the one that was close, but we had a couple laptops, we had a couple tablets, we had a couple television screens, and that was it.
And a website.
There
we go.
That was the other interesting thing. I mean, there were people who were like, I did check out this one tiny home place, and they're like, for more information, visit our website. And their business card. Look at it. This thing is a piece of card stock. It looks like it's 3 business cards put together in one. It was pretty thick. They were the only ones who I visited who were like, "You want more information? Go to our website." Whereas we were like, "To go to our website."
Yeah, we don't have anything but a website.
We were like, "We have it right here. If you would like to go right now."
Yeah,
that's what we're talking about.
I'd like to.
Our website.
I think of it more as we have a web platform as opposed to just a website. Indeed, it is somewhere you go.
You could think about that
as though we're a site, but our it's more of like a leaping board with many features and
Sure. Yes. um, so anyway, so that was what we had. But like I said, like we kind of alluded to, it was interesting. Originally the topic because we knew we were going to this, we were like, oh, we should scope it out and we should talk about the new smart home things that are there. And a couple days in went like, did you see anything? No. Did you see anything? No. Oh, huh. Interesting. I think like now having said that though, there were some fairly high tech things, and maybe that's the future. Like for example, there was a hybrid water heater that was like, it had a tank, but it was also on demand. Maybe that was high tech. There was again in the plumbing section, there was a toilet with a bidet on it. I don't know if that's not high tech, but it was like an adapter for the US.
I know that
there were a couple solar panels, which I don't know if that's high tech. I mean, it kind of is, but.
Well, it's funny because there was this very little. I realized that we try to talk about things that are high technology that meet some higher standard than just silicon based. But most everything we talk about require it touches in that realm of it's got computer chips on it or processors.
That's true.
Or something along those lines.
It's like Mark Andreessen's comment, like, dude, there's computer companies everywhere. Just they don't look like laptops anymore.
Exactly. And there were not any computer companies there except us.
Yeah, that's true. Which maybe we missed something. I mean, there was that one hot tub. It had sound speakers and a touch screen.
Yeah.
That was a high tech hot tub.
Yeah, but
maybe it's already mainstream. I don't know. It's this weird feeling. So here's this feeling. It was just like, yeah, there were things that were definitely like they had computers attached to them, but it also didn't feel like smart home. And maybe it's because in my head, when we think smart home, we think smart assistant, perhaps. And maybe we have to stop thinking that way and realize, no, there's a ton of smart homey things that don't have anything to do with voice or touch screens. A lot of them did have touch, not a lot of them, a few of them had touch screens. I don't know. It was weird, just...
Let me give you my perspective then. I would say that, okay, number one, and I pointed this out relatively early on in the conference because I had to catch a taxi from my drop-off to the event center the first day.
Yes.
You might be thinking, why didn't you just call a Lyft or an Uber? Well, because Lane County, specifically the city of Eugene, doesn't allow Lyfts or Ubers yet. They're one of they're like the largest market that still doesn't allow either of those companies. So they're not super progressive when it comes to high-tech platforms coming in. So that's the sort of people that we're coming, that's the culture that we're addressing with this. So I think that this home show might be a particularly
Luddite of a show.
Yeah, maybe that's the best way to put it. But I think that what's worth acknowledging is that you got to stretch, man. There was, like you said, the jacuzzis had Bluetooth sound systems in them, but that's not crazy advanced. There wasn't a lot of wireless. There wasn't a lot of intelligence going on, right? To me, where the home, what I necessarily talk about the smart home is where it's like there's automation, and there's automation that can improve over time, either through tracking your patterns and adjusting to those, or regular
optimization.
Regular software updates. To me, like the smart door lock is more than just that it's powered. It's the fact that it has software built into it that can be upgraded over time and can be changed, and sometimes in annoying ways because they take away features for security reasons, but other ways they can be improved and grown upon. To me, it's like the reason why the smart speakers fit into the smart home is for that same reason, as they sort of evolve with the whole thing, and you can implement new technologies, and it's part that they're wirelessly connected to the internet. That has some weight to it, because that gives advantages that you don't have otherwise. Yeah, I don't know. I just didn't see any of that there. And so to me, this question of, we got these pieces of technology that are pretty cool. And they're the light bulbs of the modern era. And
there were no light bulb things there.
Man.
Which I wonder, like there wasn't a Lowe's or a Home Depot, and perhaps that'd be the kind of stuff that you could see them feature, where they would say, hey, buy this smart home stuff at our store. We've got smart fire alarms and lights and alarm systems and washing machines. Maybe the washing machines were smart, and we just because I didn't stop there. It didn't look like it.
No.
I don't know.
Yeah,
it's an interesting... I was kind of hoping I would be able to walk into today's show with an answer to this question. And the more I think about it, the more I'm like, man, of course it's got to have the fundamental things, right? It's got to be useful. It's got to be competitively priced, or it has to have a lot. What's the way to say it? It has to provide a significant more amount of value than the additional cost, or it's going to somehow save you money because you're not going to need as big of an asset or footprint or whatever.
So I think there's like three things that are required. But before I enumerate those, let's talk about our sponsor. Our sponsor for today's episode is A Roof and Four Walls.
You can do a lot with those.
What makes a house a home? Well, first off, it is at least 4 walls and a roof, unless it's circular and then maybe it's one round.
Then it's a yurt.
Yeah, exactly. Not really a home. So, you can have more walls than that. Nobody's going to yell about that. No one's going to stop you. You can't really have many more roofs than that. Otherwise, they're separate buildings. So really kind of the bare minimum is a roof and 4 walls. So, if you want to help support the show, go out and get a home. And go to majordomo.com and score your home.
Yeah. Figure out what your home's domo score is so you know what to do next for maintenance, not you bought it.
Yeah, there you go. Boom.
It's brought this show, dude. There you go. It's brought to you by 4 walls and a roof and Major Domo.
There we go. Yeah. This is our first honest advertisement.
It seriously is.
Yeah. So
what do you see as necessary for to go mainstream or to be a success, or
to really get to the point where it's even at Lane County? And I'm going to say there's 3 things.
Okay.
Number 1, there needs to be reliability. Number 1, there needs to be mass. There needs to be saturation in some markets, and number 3, there needs to be third parties that are going to be really pushing this. Okay, and this is my logic. Number 1, reliability. Every once in a while, my lights turn on when they shouldn't. Every once in a while,
the power goes out.
Well, last night I was getting ready to go to bed, and I told Google to turn my lights off. And about 3 minutes later, my lights turned on inexplicably. Thankfully, I wasn't already trying to go to sleep. Now, it might have been somebody else accidentally triggering it. It might have been something else entirely.
That's the point. You don't know.
Exactly. Every once in a while, you try to turn something on and there's a communication breakdown and you're not talking to your lights. That sort of stuff, I think, has to get to the point where it becomes really, really, really super rare. I don't think it has to be never, but a once a year is probably the maximum that you can really suffer some sort of a major outage before. It's got to get to the point where reliability, even if that means simplifications in the things that it's capable of doing, but reliability on some of these platforms have to be just stellar before anybody's going to really get into it. Number 2, I think small third parties have to start really, there has to be a lot of companies that are involved in saying, we buy Philips Hue light bulbs, we set them up for you. Services that don't design and build these things, but like the water heaters that you were talking about before, there are tradesmen who their skill is setting those up for you and managing them. And I think there's a lot of people that, wouldn't dislike it, would go for it, would even start to rely on it, but there needs to be some sort of a tradesperson part involved. And, maybe that's and hopefully most of that would be highly automated and managed by a remote IT team, if not a artificial intelligence. But I think just going through and turning everything on and plugging everything in at really reasonable prices, that's something that needs to exist in the same way that water heaters exist and plumbers exist and electricians exist. I think there's something that comes next. And then the last one, this like tipping point idea, electricity was really, really, really prevalent in big cities. Everybody had it for a very long time. And then as late as the 1960s, many rural communities still didn't have electricity. And there was nationwide movements to say, hey, we need to change that. We need to bring electricity out there. And there was a governmental movement to supply power. And I don't necessarily think that you need some sort of a governmental program to push smart light bulbs. But I do think that there's something that happens when certain markets hit saturation where pretty much everybody has it, that there becomes this bigger move to say, okay, the communities that don't have it, why not? And because once you've got a saturation in a particular market or community, I think what you've answered the question is what's going to fly and what's going to die. What do people like? What's actually has value versus which is just a convenience or
shiny object.
Yeah, exactly. And and I think that we're not there yet. I'm in the most.
Well, when you think about a product's life cycle, there's the early adopters, the people. No, that's not even right. It's like the innovators are the first people, and it's a very small percentage. We're only talking like 2 to 4% of people who are like, it's shiny object and they like shiny objects, and so that's what they're going to get. And then you have the early adopters, which is that next part of it, which are people who are like, which is probably the category that I mostly fall into, where it's like, well, it's not fully proven yet. There's still some weirdness that you got to put up with, but sure, I'm in. And then you have the early majority, and then it goes into the majority, and that's the part, and it's the early majority is like you were talking about with the cities or communities. It really starts to take off, and it's big in there. I know, like we hit that with solar power. All of a sudden, it's like we just in the last a year or two, it's hit that, and now it's like, oh yeah, there's a thing. It's not a big deal. And now we're into the majority for it, and then eventually we're going to hit the late majority, and then you have your laggards is your tail end there, and so it's really like, all right, well, what is it? And there's a lot of products that like they never make it past that innovator group, that first initial who were going to buy it no matter what because it was quote new.
Yeah,
and I get it, right? You got to have those groups because they're the ones who are going to be testing it, who are going to be playing with it, who are going to put up with the wonkiness and the bugs, and say, yeah, it's all fine. And it's through their learnings that, like you said, survival of the fittest, cream rises to the top, whatever. Mm-hmm. That's where it's clearly like doorbells. That's a thing that society is. That one is slowly but surely coming out.
Right.
Of that, the innovators and the early adopters. It's now, which is why Amazon is getting in on it, which by the way, they tried to buy August and were rebuffed, and August sold out to that European company. And so they bought Ring, and Amazon's clearly paying attention and going, oh yeah, this is one of those products that is on that swing.
Right.
And, and obviously Google, or formerly Nest, now owned by Google, as we accurately predicted, is, they were like thermostats. That could be they're already a thing, and we think we can make them smart. I don't know if that's still kind of like one of those, it's still kind of hovering along in that early adopter kind of time period. It hasn't gotten total wide acceptance yet. So I don't know. There's a few The light bulbs feels like one where that's more of a price point issue, where eventually the prices are going to drop enough, and they're already starting to get there. I mean, I already hear a lot of people who go $19 for a white Philips Hue. All right, sure. They're not going to outfit their entire house right away, but as light bulbs go out, they're going to do a room or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
And you could imagine where if Philips Hue comes out and says, all right, we've got another one. It's, even cheaper. We figured out how to do it. It's only $10 a bulb or $9.99 or something. You're going to have a lot of people who go, sure. Okay, I'm in. And so that kind of stuff's coming, but, yeah.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. There's that tipping point that definitely needs to happen.
Yeah. I just think that I think the smart lights make sense. The longer that I have lived with them, the more they've just sort of become part of my deal, and I've gotten very accustomed to them, and it bugs me when they don't work a lot because I've gotten so accustomed to them. And I do think you'll get to a point where eventually, and like you said, it's kind of a price point thing, but eventually you'll get to a price point where they're super common.
Well, I think it's one of those where if you talk to everybody is interested in it, they just go, oh, it's kind of expensive.
Yeah.
As opposed to people saying, well, why would you get that?
Right. Yeah.
Like that's reaction I get a lot with my blinds. They go, really? Smart blinds? Was that required?
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe not. And but that's one of those where I don't think it's a price point deal. I think eventually, sure, prices will come down enough where, yeah, it'll just that'll be the option. And maybe that's what it takes to go mainstream. Maybe all this premium pricing needs to go away. And we need to come back and say, no, you know what? It's only a slight premium, or maybe that's what it is. I don't know.
I hear what you're saying. I don't actually think pricing is necessarily the breaking point. I think that the fact that they bring additional functionality and usefulness and you get used to them, once you get under a certain point, that's good enough. And I think for the lights, I actually think that there are lighting options that are there. I think the hues might be a little more too expensive, but honestly, the white lights, just the dimmable white lights aren't. They're like $15,
right?
$12 if you can get them on sale. And
why not get IKEA who's selling them at reasonable prices? And
right, and I just think that once you've kind of taken the step, it's just a very low effort to kind of grow that ecosystem even more, and the cost is very reasonable. I do think that there are things that the cost is still too expensive. There are parts of it, but I don't know. I was surprised there was nobody hawking lights there or a service that sold any. And I think it's just it's still too early in it. There's not enough, or we're just missing those pieces. And
so just give it time. That's all we need. Let some prices come down. Let reliability increase. Let the value perception be figured out. Let the tradespeople buy in and make it more normal. You think, and it's heading there now. Okay, so final question before we wrap this thing up. You want to commit to a timeline?
Oh, geez.
Oh yeah, feet to the fire.
Man, okay. I would say.
I mean, right? Like you talked about. Clearly, we're kind of at 100% for houses with electricity. I feel like we're at a solid 85, maybe even 90% for homes with internet. I know we're clearly not at even like 25% for like smart doorbells.
I would say smart doorbells are probably going to be the fastest growing one.
Thanks to Amazon pushing that price of Ring down, which was already pretty affordable.
Yeah. I would say that one probably goes first, and I could see you get to 50% market share. The majority of people have one in 10 to 15 years. I think it takes a lot longer than self-driving cars, if I'm totally honest. I think adoption of self-driving cars will be a lot faster. I think it could be.
Well, I know for new homes now, they're putting in a lot of smart features, and that helps too. It makes it aspirational.
That makes it a big. That does help. I think we're on a decades-long journey, honestly.
Decades long, yeah. I couldn't decide if it was 5 or 10 years. I really want it to be 5. That sounds really, really fast, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
It could be as long as 15 or 20. That sounds crazy long, though. I mean, you just think about like 10 years ago, we weren't even talking about smartphones and smart homes. So
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I like 10 years. 2028, 2030. Yeah. We'll have super smart homes. I'm in. I love it. Cool, man. We're committed. Let's make it happen. We've set the dream and the vision. Now it's just up to the engineers to do the work and for people to buy into it, which I'm doing my part. But there you go. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. That's the show. It's kind of an interesting concept, just thinking about those smart homes. Question for you. What smart home things do you have? Do you have anything that's smart in your home? And if so, what is it? I'd like to know. And with that, I want to say thank you for joining us. We really do appreciate it. You can check out, well, there are no links, but you can check out, no, it's not even going to be show notes. You can check out furlobros.com, episode 330 for the fun of it. Actually, better yet, go to majordomo.com and check that out and let us know what you think of that, because why not? You can subscribe to our show on iTunes and Google Play. And we want to thank the Lane County Home and Garden Show for letting us set up a booth and for letting us talk about them and for giving us a glimpse of where, mainstream US is at in terms of home improvements and stuff. So thanks, guys. And as you've already gathered, the show is sponsored by listeners and by A Roof and Four Walls, which can be evaluated with the Domo score. And so, oh gosh, we never actually explained this. So, all right, before I totally sign off here, one of the things that we did is if you go to majordomo.com, you'll notice that there's like these medallions. There's these circles with scores on them sitting above houses. Those are Domo scores. And so one of the things that we did to promote it is we printed off very big versions of those onto cardboard discs, and we created some metal, I don't know what you call them, straps, poles, yard signs, and we strapped them to not to my back, but to Matthew's back and someone else's back, and made him walk around with them. They were attention grabbers, and they were mightily effective. And I think where do you got to go? You got to go to, if you check out the Major Domo blog, you'll see a picture of it there. So that's that inside joke explained at the end. So with that, I am James Furlo, and my yard sign brother is Matthew Furlo, and so we will talk next time.